One of the big parts that's unique about a modernization process that takes advantage of a tooling like TSRI has with Janus is the ability to accept changes at any point. Once those rules for the transformation for a given gateway are written, they can be applied to any new code that comes in. So we can get changes, we can get updates, that are in operation, be able to migrate those through and redeploy. So all those are of ability for us to be able to kind of manage change throughout a transformation process. Another key point is, and I'll talk about again and again, is how critical it is to have these environments set up and available when they're needed. So I always push for getting these sandboxes and getting the target solutions stood up before we deliver the code, and not be in a situation where you've got the code and you can only run it in IDE. You want to be able to stand it up in the cloud environment, deploy it, work through the software pipeline issues, and be able to make sure that there isn't going to be any infrastructure blocking you with respect to the code rules. And another big part of the overall process is being able to kind of understand and communicate the metrics, communicate changes, because you're going to have to expect some variance, being able to adapt to those changes and be able to understand when things can be done sooner and having the resources that can take advantage of them, and then when things end up happening later and being able to come up with contingency plans. So about that planning process, we typically kick off a project with a real strong understanding of the transformation itself. Whether or not the code is parsing, lexing, it's clean, and we can handle it. Then identifying what components aren't available with respect to externals, or with respect to calls out to other mainframe programs, or with respect to system calls and utilities that aren't available in the sources. And then developing a strategy that goes through and looks at the target architecture, which cloud you're going to be going to, whether or not you want to have a private instance of that implementation. Obviously the target language, versioning and coding standards. Big part of it's also data migration we'll touch on. And then going into the specifics associated with not just the syntax and semantics, but the ways that we can go through and transform and take advantage of the native types within the target language. Another big part of the overall planning process is the release and what's going to be done with respect to validating the solution. TSRI has worked with companies that have used an agile approach that's enterprise-wide, that leverages multiple different teams operating in parallel. So you have one team focused on the infrastructure, another team focused on the database migration, another team focused on the transformation, another team focused on the framework elements, another team focused on the cloud services, all operating in parallel, having a number of different dependencies and being able to make sure those dependencies are unblocked when the other team requires them. And synchronizing the spirals and making sure that those spirals, which are deliverables associated with the code, are growing in content and offered at a time that's required to fit into that sprint planning.